I used to think online friendships were temporary by default, the kind of thing that only lasted as long as the game stayed fun. You'd team up with someone, run a few matches, maybe laugh over voice chat, and then eventually, they'd disappear. So when this one struck, it felt different. This was a few years ago, back when I had more time than responsibilities. I was my early 20s, working part-time, and most of my nights were spent gaming. It was routine at that point. Headset on, lights off, the soft glow of the screen filling the room while everything else stayed quiet. One night, I signed up for a random duos match. That's where I met him. He didn't stand out at first. Just another voice in my headset, calm, relaxed, easy to talk to. No obnoxious mic noise, no forced energy. We landed, looted, played smart. Won the match. I actually. And afterward we just kept talking. Not about the game, just normal stuff. Work, music, random life complaints. It felt natural in a way that's rare with strangers online. We added each other after that. At first it was just occasional games, then it became a habit. Same time most nights, same routine. We didn't even have to ask anymore. If one of us was online, the other would join. He told me he worked from home, some kind of freelance setup. Never went into too much detail, and I didn't push. I got the sense he wasn't the type to overshare, but he was easy to be around. If anything, I was probably the louder one between us. After a couple of weeks, it just became normal. Like logging in wasn't just about playing anymore, it was about catching up. That's why the night everything changed felt so off. We were mid-match. Nothing intense, just moving through the map, clearing buildings, talking about something dumb. I don't even remember what. Then I heard a door open on his end. He went quiet. I didn't think much of it. People get interrupted all the time. Then I heard a woman's voice. Not loud, not aggressive, just firm. "Get off, now." He let out a small sigh, like he'd heard that tone before. "Why?" he asked. There was a pause, and then everything changed. A second voice cut through, sharp, loud, and intense. It was a man's voice. "Don't ask questions," I said. "Get off." The volume alone made me sit up a little straighter. My teammate didn't respond right away. I could hear movement, maybe his chair shifting slightly. Then, more quietly, he said, "I'm just finishing something." That was the wrong answer. The man's voice came back louder this time. Closer. "I said now, and don't even think about stepping outside tonight. You hear me? Don't try it." There was a strange emphasis on that last part, like it wasn't just about the game anymore. Then he added something that made the hair on my skin rise. "Because if you do, I swear there will be consequences, and don't think I'm joking." There was a brief silence after that, the kind where you can feel tension sitting in the air. I didn't say anything. I wasn't sure if I should. It didn't feel like my place, but it also didn't feel right to just sit there like nothing was happening. Finally, I spoke. "Hey, you good?" No response, just a quiet, rustling sound on his end. Then his mic cut out. He was gone, just like that. I sat there in front of my PC for a few seconds, staring at the screen. The match was still ongoing. My character just standing there, exposed in the open. I backed out and decided to send him a message. "You okay?" No reply. I told myself it wasn't a big deal. People get pulled away all the time. Maybe his parents were just strict. Maybe I'd read too much into it. But something about the tone of the elderly man's voice stuck with me. I went offline immediately afterwards. The next day I sent another message. Still nothing. Days passed, then a week. His profile stayed inactive. At first I figured he'd just taken a break. Maybe things got busy. Maybe something came up. But the longer it went on, the more it started to feel wrong. Because this wasn't someone who just disappeared. Not without saying anything. We'd been talking almost every day. Even if he couldn't play, he would have sent something. At least that's what I told myself. But I tried messaging him again. Eventually, I stopped. Not because I wasn't thinking about it, but because there was nothing else I could do. Life moved on the way it does. Work picked up. My schedule changed. I stopped gaming as much. Months turned into years, and slowly the whole thing faded into the background. Then, unexpectedly, I saw him again. It wasn't online, it was in person. I was at a small electronics store, just browsing. Killing time, mostly. And I heard a voice behind me that felt strangely familiar, but I couldn't place where I'd heard it before I turned around, and this dude was smiling at me. "Who are you?" I asked. He smiled at me and called me by my gaming name, told me he'd remembered small details from our conversation and decided to track me down. Apparently, and his father had trashed his controller way back then, and he hadn't bothered with buying a new one since it would probably yield the same result. "My dad was intense," he said. "Still is to some extent." He leaned back slightly, looking out towards the road. He had this way of talking that made everything sound like a threat, even when it wasn't. He explained. I didn't say anything, just listened. A few years back, I used to take everything he said literally. He continued. If he told me not to leave the house, I wouldn't, not even for a second. I thought something serious would happen if I did. Like what? I asked. He gave a small shrug. Whatever he said would happen. I sat up in shock. Was he serious that night? I asked. He hesitated. That's the thing, he said. I don't think he ever really meant most of it. It was just how he kept control. Fear, I guess. But, he added after a pause, the way he said it, it didn't feel empty, but I guess you felt it too. There was something in his tone that made that last part stick. We didn't talk much about it after that. A stranger convinced us to follow him deeper into an empty arcade, and we almost didn't walk back out. This happened last spring break when I was 23. My girlfriend and I had decided to keep things simple that year. Nothing too crazy, just spending time together and getting out of our usual routine. One night, pretty late, we ended up going to an arcade spot that stayed open well past midnight. It wasn't crowded at all when we got there. By the time it hit around 1:30 a.m., the place had pretty much emptied out. There were a couple of employees cleaning near the bowling lanes, and maybe one other pair somewhere deeper in the building, but that was it. It actually felt kind of nice at first. Quiet, relaxed, like we had the whole place to ourselves. We started off playing one of those basketball arcade games, the kind where you just shoot as fast as you can while the timer counts down. It was one of those simple moments that don't feel important at the time, just laughing, competing, and not really paying attention to anything else going on around you. At some point during the game, I noticed someone standing off to the side. Not close enough to be in our space, but close enough to be noticeable. He was just watching. Tall, a little taller than me, and I'm not short. I didn't think much of it at first. In a place like that, it's not unusual for people to drift around or watch for a bit. But right before the game ended, he turned and walked away. It was easy to ignore, and honestly, I did. We moved on without really acknowledging it, heading toward a different section of the arcade where the claw machines were lined up. My girlfriend wanted to try her luck, and I was just there for the fun of it. While she was focused on the machine, I glanced up again. He was there. This time, a little closer than before. Not close enough to say anything about. Not doing anything obvious, but standing in a way that made it feel like he hadn't just randomly ended up there. Like he had followed the same direction we had, without making it obvious. I didn't say anything right away. I didn't want to make it into something it wasn't, but I couldn't fully ignore it either. A few seconds later, he walked up to us, He didn't come across as aggressive or anything like that. His tone was casual, almost friendly. He mentioned one of the arcade games further down, something about it being an easy way to get tickets. The way he said it made it sound like he was just trying to help us out. Normally, I would have brushed something like that off, but there was something about the timing that made the whole interaction feel just slightly off. Not enough to react strongly, but enough that I became a lot more aware of everything. Before I could really think it through, we ended up walking in that direction with him. It wasn't a conscious decision, not really. More like one of those moments where you go along with something just to avoid making it awkward. He led the way, and we followed, keeping a little bit of distance without making it obvious. The further we went, the quieter it got. That part of the arcade was near the edge of the building, where the lighting felt dimmer and the machines were more spread out. The energy felt different there, not as open, not as visible as the main area we had been in before. He stopped at one of the enclosed arcade booths, the kind where you step inside, sit down, and the whole thing surrounds you while you play. From the outside, you couldn't really see much once someone was inside. It felt more isolated than the other machines. That was the first moment I felt something change. I looked at the game, then at him, then back at the booth. And that's when I noticed it was already running. The screen was active, the game waiting, like it had been set up ahead of time. I didn't say anything right away. He gestured toward it, repeating that it was worth trying. Something about that didn't sit right with me. It wasn't anything I could point to directly, just a feeling that things weren't lining up the way they should. And the kind of feeling that doesn't come with a clear explanation, just a quiet sense that you should probably step away. So I did. I kept it simple, told him we weren't really interested, that we were just going to keep walking around. I didn't make it a big deal, didn't accuse him of anything, just gave a casual excuse and stepped back slightly, enough to signal we weren't going further. For a second he didn't react. Then he pointed toward another game nearby, another enclosed one. That was enough for me. At that point, it wasn't about whether anything was actually wrong. It was about the pattern, the same setup, the same kind of space, the same suggestion. It didn't feel random anymore. I glanced at my girlfriend, and I could tell she felt it too. We didn't say anything to him after that. I just gave a quick excuse about heading out soon and started walking back toward the main area. Not fast enough to draw attention, but not slow either. Neither of us spoke until we were closer to the front. Even then, it wasn't much. Just a quick exchange to confirm we were on the same page, that we both felt something off about the whole situation, even if we couldn't fully explain why. We walked out, got into the car, and left without looking back. The drive home should have felt normal, but it didn't. Every set of headlights in the distance caught my attention more than it should have. Every turn felt slightly heavier, like I was paying closer attention than usual. Not because anything was happening, but because of the feeling we had carried out of that place with us. We didn't see him again. No car was following us. Nothing that confirmed any of the thoughts running through our heads. And that's what made it harder to process. There was no clear event to point to, nothing concrete to explain why it stuck with us. Just a series of small moments that didn't quite add up. Even now, I still think about it. Part of me thinks it was nothing. Just a guy being overly persistent, maybe trying to be friendly in a way that didn't land right. It happens. Not everyone reads situations the same way. But there's another part of me that doesn't fully buy that, because I can't shake the timing, or the setup, or the way that feeling hit before I could even explain it. And sometimes it's not about what happened, but what might have. Some of the most unsettling experiences don't come from places you expect. They don't happen out in the middle of nowhere or in some abandoned building. Sometimes they happen in the one place you're supposed to feel completely safe. And what makes them stick isn't just what happens, but how quickly everything normal can shift into something you don't fully understand. This happened last spring break, not too long ago. I had been home alone that night, which wasn't unusual. My parents had gone out for dinner, and my brother was staying over at a friend's place. It was one of those quiet nights where you expect nothing to happen, so you don't really think twice about anything. A friend of mine, Brandon, had convinced me to get back into a game I hadn't touched in a while. I wasn't great at it anymore, and so most of the night was just us messing around, talking, and not taking anything too seriously. It felt like any other late-night session, the kind that stretches longer than you expect because there's nothing else pulling your attention away. I was wearing my headset the whole time. The volume was up higher than it probably should have been, which meant I wasn't really paying attention to anything happening around me. Outside noise, small sounds in the house, all of it just blended into the background or disappeared completely. I was focused on the game and the conversation. Nothing else. At some point, Brandon went quiet for a second. Then he said he had just gotten a message from a number he didn't recognize. That alone didn't seem like a big deal, but there was something about his tone that made me pay attention. I asked him what it said. There was a short pause before he answered. He told me it said to look out the window. At first I thought he was joking. It didn't sound serious. It sounded like one of those random things people send just to mess with someone. I even laughed it off, telling him there was nothing outside, that it didn't make sense. But he corrected me almost immediately. Not his window. Mine. That was the moment it stopped feeling like a joke. I remember turning my head slowly, not even sure which direction to look at first. My room had more than one window, and for a second I felt oddly disoriented trying to figure out which one to check. It shouldn't have been confusing, but it was. I started scanning them one by one. Most of them reflected the inside of my room more than anything else. When I looked toward the one that sat slightly off to the side, partially hidden from where I was sitting. And that's when I saw someone standing outside. At first, it didn't fully register. He wasn't facing me directly. Just standing there, angled slightly away from the window, like he wasn't even aware I was looking. For a brief second, I tried to convince myself it was nothing. Maybe someone passing by. Maybe someone who stopped for a moment. But something about it didn't feel right. I put my headset back on, trying to act normal. Brandon spoke again almost immediately. He said he had gotten another message. This time, his tone had changed. It wasn't confusion anymore. It sounded closer to concern. He told me to look again. I did. The person was still there. But now the situation felt different. Brandon said something that didn't sit right with me. He mentioned that whoever was messaging him had described what I was doing. Not in detail, but enough to make it clear they could see me. That they were watching in real time. I didn't respond right away. I just started trying to figure out how that made any sense. Then suddenly, Brandon went silent again. No warning, no explanation, just gone from the call. At first I thought it was a connection issue, but when I checked, he was still online, still in the game. It didn't add up. He never left like that without saying anything, especially not in the middle of a conversation like that. Before I could process it, I got another invite from him. I joined without thinking. But the voice that came through didn't sound right. It wasn't him. It was deeper. For a second, I didn't even react. I just listened, trying to understand what I was hearing. Then it spoke again. "Come outside. Don't make me come in." He didn't shout. That's what made it worse. I took off my headset. Slowly. And looked back at the window. The figure was closer now. I couldn't clearly make out the details, but the posture had changed. There was movement now. Subtle, but enough to feel different from before. That's when I had a very clear feeling that I shouldn't stay where I was. I grabbed my phone without thinking. The battery was almost gone. That alone made everything feel strange. I didn't waste time trying to figure things out anymore. I just moved, left the room, went downstairs, putting distance between myself and that side of the house. My thoughts were scattered, trying to decide what mattered most in that moment. Call someone, hide, all at once. I could hear something faint behind me. Not loud enough to be clear, but enough that I didn't want to stop moving. I ended up heading upstairs again, but to a different part of the house. Somewhere I could close myself off, somewhere that felt less exposed than where I had been before. I didn't think it through completely. I just acted. Closed the door, locked it, waited. The silence that followed felt worse than any noise. I couldn't tell what was happening outside that room. Couldn't tell if anything had changed. Every small sound felt amplified, like my brain was trying to fill in gaps that didn't have clear answers. Then, after what felt like too long, I heard something. Not close, but not far either. Footsteps, maybe, or something similar. It's hard to describe exactly. My breathing got louder. I tried to stay still, not make any unnecessary noise, just listening. The kind of listening where you're not even sure what you're waiting to hear, just that you need to be ready if it happens. And then, distantly, I heard sirens. At first I thought I imagined it, but they got louder. That was the first moment I felt a break in the tension that had been building since I first looked out that window. After a while, everything went quiet again. I stayed where I was for a few minutes longer, just to be sure. Not rushing to move, not rushing to check anything. Just waiting until I felt like I could actually think again. Eventually, I stepped out. The house felt normal, like nothing had happened at all. I checked the rooms one by one, moving slowly, half expecting to find something out of place. But everything looked the same as it had before. Nothing broken. Nothing obvious. Just silence. Later on, I tried to piece everything together. Tried to make sense of how someone could have known what I was doing. How Brandon's phone got involved. Whether any of it had a simple explanation that I just wasn't seeing in the moment. I never got a clear answer. Brandon said his phone had been acting strange that night. He'd gotten messages he didn't fully understand. I couldn't help but feel concerned, not just because I'd seen someone outside, but because how specific the events were. If you've made it this far, then you already know. Not every story leaves you with answers. Some just leave you with questions. So before you click off, make sure you subscribe to Deep Horror TV, because there's always more waiting. And the next story might stay with you a little longer than you expect.